Guys, in this video here, I'm going to be talking about this little exchange between Winsome Sears and Bill Maher. But I'm also going to be spending a good portion of time explaining how it is that our media manipulates, and also to go on top of that, what their end game is. So please stick around for the full video. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. There is a certain word that I want you to go ahead and learn at this moment in time before we get started. And that word, and I want you to keep this word in your mind the entire time while you're watching this video. It's called heat. It's a term that we would use in professional wrestling. When I say we, I'm talking about wrestling fans. At one point in time, I was, in fact, a very large wrestling fan. You're probably thinking to yourself, what does this have to do with this exchange between Winsome Sears and Bill Maher? Well, pay very, very close attention to the very beginning of this exchange.
And dead naming the murderer. Right? They are referring to the murderer by their given name, not their chosen name.
Right.
And by their referring to her as a woman, as opposed to what her identity apparently was a man.
Right.
Which is not the way the media usually does these things. They're usually very particular about the subjective sense of gender identity in respecting that. If someone says they're a man, then they're a man. But in this case, they're not doing that.
Hang on. You know what? This person murdered 6 people. I don't really care who you say you are. You murdered 6 people, and 3 of them were children. You don't get a...
I'm pretty sure that you guys caught it, but just in case you didn't catch it, and don't worry, please help me out. I don't want to sound like I'm lecturing anyone or anything, but just a very, very key thing I want to point out, because I know sometimes I can come off as a little bit brash on this channel from time to time, and obviously I'm trying to make some changes here. The thing is this right here. At the very beginning, that guy basically said that the mainstream media misgendered that individual. Now, I did not show you the full exchange. Don't worry, we will get to the full exchange here in a second. I think that what's happening is that the mainstream media, obviously, when they found out that this individual was, in fact, of a certain community, I have to watch my language here on the platform, they automatically decided to run from that. So the normal gun control narrative that is pitched after every single, shooting, suddenly died when they found out that the focus was about to be shifted to mental illness. And of course, the left, they responded in the normal fashion that they normally do. They start screaming, they start hollering, they start having very, very bad tweets like what David Pakman sent out. Of course, he deleted it, later on saying that he deleted it because he was getting death threats and his family was getting death threats. I'm pretty sure most of you guys have probably heard this story by now. I've done a lot of videos and I'll leave it in the description box for you guys. I'm saying this because this is the normal reaction once you, quite frankly, lost the argument before the argument even starts. These people were obviously coming out pumping the gun control narrative, which, by the way, was to a certain degree discussed in the Winsome Sears-Bill Maher exchange. And like I said, we'll be playing the full exchange here in a second. Not to mention the second exchange, which is kind of sort of edited down, where Bill Maher kind of exposed something about himself. Now, gang, it's not just Winsome Sears and the Bill Maher exchange that we're talking about. This right here was originally supposed to be a project, but then I thought about it and I was like, I can make more videos about this, so why not actually do that? We're talking about how it is that the media does, in fact, manipulate you. Now, the term heat, where does heat come from and where is heat actually used? Well, heat is used in the wrestling business primarily. Let me give you guys an example. During the Attitude Era in the WWE, which, by the way, most people my age really and truly enjoyed because it was constant entertainment, and even the WCW, and we'll get to Eric Bischoff here soon, and his a little bit of his spiel at a TED Talk in Naperville, Indiana. The thing that occurs is that oftentimes the heels, the bad guys, they will try to drive up the fans' emotions against them. The idea is to get them to hate you. The idea is to get them to dislike you. And of course, the baby faces, they're designed to get you to love them. Of course, Stone Cold Steve Austin fighting with Vince McMahon every week, the mere image that you could beat up your boss every weekend was very appealing. And they ran with that heat. Vince McMahon, obviously being kind of the master and ruler of the WWE and professional wrestling for a very, very long time, obviously knew how to use this. Of course, the reasons why he would do that were completely different, especially coming off of what happened in Montreal. But once again, that right there may be a different topic for a later date. However, you have to understand, these talking heads, they kind of play into this and they kind of have an agenda to push. The main agenda that they're trying to push is being very, very pro-transgender. I mean, think about it really quick. Our own White House press secretary had this to say after the shooting.
Our hearts go out to the trans community as they are under attack right now.
You basically simped for the shooter. You simped for the perpetrator. Okay, you simped for them, But you did not want to mention the victims. You did not want to mention their families. You did not want to mention the fact that 3 little kids got killed. You did not want to mention not only the 3 little kids that got killed, but the 3 parents or the 3 older individuals that got killed as well. The school facilitators, the teachers, the people who work there. You did not want to mention this. You see, the idea behind our mainstream media is to get one side of the aisle overly emotional. You see, they've been trying to provoke another 6-1. I have to say 6-1 because if you say it the right way, then you may get one of those little labels on your video. And of course, YouTube will find a way to not promote that actual video. So basically, there's what they've been trying to do. Don't worry, we'll get to another little thing that's been going on here recently. I'm pretty sure you guys have already got the previous videos I made in the back of your mind. If you're already subscribed to this channel, you've been talking a lot about the Trump indictment lately. Don't worry, we'll get to that. Before we go any further, though, let's look at the full exchange between these two, or the first full exchange, the one that I played earlier. Let's look at that one in its entirety.
And dead naming the murderer, right? They are referring to the murderer by their given name, not their chosen name,
right,
and by their referring to her as a woman, as opposed to what her identity apparently was a man,
right,
which is not the way the media usually does these things. They're usually very particular about the subjective sense of gender identity in respecting that. If someone says they're a man, then they're a man. But in this case, they're not doing that.
Hang on, you know what? This person murdered 6 people. I don't really care who you say you are. You murdered 6 people, and 3 of them were children. You don't get a say. Well, she's dead now, so, but you don't get a say in telling us who you are and what you're about. You killed 6 people.
Okay, but
that's what
let's
really
take
matters.
her out of this and just...
All right, so here's what I'm saying.
Talk about the issue without the
So
murder.
the issue then, well, no, because you brought it out, so we
Okay.
can talk about it. So now we're on to something else. But here's the thing.
I'm a parent. I'm a parent all day. I get to decide what happens in my child's life. Not you, not the government, not anybody. I don't co-parent. I had this child. I'm responsible for this child. Anything happens to little Johnny, you're calling me, right? As you should. Right. So what I'm saying, hang on. So what I'm saying now is, if I don't want my child given lap dances at school by a drag queen, I don't want it done.
Right.
That's happening.
But do you think the state should have the right? Do you think the state should have the right to interfere?
I'm talking about as a parent.
Well,
I am a parent.
I mean,
Forget the state. I'm a parent.
lap dances.
This is my child.
I'm not
I will make a decision about what happens with my child.
I'm not sure lap dances.
It's happening. Don't you see it?
No, there's drag queen story out. There are definitely drag queens reading to children.
There are drag queens that are doing pole dances. There are drag queens that are
in school.
You.
What?
Bill, you gotta read more.
Everything that Winsome Sears is saying is 100% true. She is coming at this from a completely calm and common sense and very relatable manner. Hence the fact she got a lot of cheers. As a matter of fact, she got a lot of cheers in the next exchange, which I'll play before the end. But before we go any further, let me give you an example of the media using cheap heat. This is one of the earlier examples, not really the earlier examples as like the earliest example, but definitely an earlier example in recent times. I'm pretty sure some of you guys may remember the Boston bombing. Occurred, the Tsarnaev brothers, how it was that we found out later on that Russia was trying to warn us of these 2 particular individuals. Well, after that bombing, what did they do with the younger one, the one that survived? They put his face on Rolling Stone. They did this to give him almost like a Jim Morrison-like spread. Don't you see how that right there would anger a lot of people? I mean, I even remember at that time that even angered a lot of liberals. This guy injured a lot of people, killed 3, and we're giving him a Rolling Stone style piece? In what world does this actually occur? Now, guys, we're going to roll the other exchange, the one that was kind of edited down on Twitter and was shared all over the place. It's a relatively lengthy one, and in there, of course, Bill Maher, the ardent liberal who claims that he's not changed, the one that people like Tim Pool love to tell us that he's been red pill, when we all know, if we've watched Bill Maher for years, he's just simply coping with the world around him, the decisions that he made every single election cycle by donating to Democrats, voting for Democrats, also rooting for there to be a recession in 2020 in the hopes of getting Donald Trump out. Yeah, that type of guy right there. One of the many reasons why I just don't garner a whole lot of how do I say this? I don't not respect him, but I definitely don't really care for him. because he, quite frankly, is responsible for a lot of the crap that is going on today, especially when it comes to thinking and groupthink. Let me go ahead and roll.
I think the congressman there in Nashville, there he is. This is his Christmas card. I mean, and you know, these are not the only ones. There are many Republican politicians who do that. When you put,
including the lieutenant governor.
Is that
What's
right?
that, the AR?
Yeah.
I'm a Marine. I know how to use it. And
Christmas?
And here's what, no, I wouldn't do it for Christmas, but here's the thing.
I've had few victories tonight, but I consider that one of them.
No, well, but here's the thing. If you're breaking into my home while I'm waiting on the police to come,
Right.
I'm going to shoot you.
That's what that's why I have
That's
a
just
gun.
the way it is.
Me too.
Because it's,
I'm not,
you know.
yes.
And
That's exactly what it is.
I'm going to pray for you, but I'm going to shoot you.
I'm going to.
That entire ordeal from an extremely sane, rational point of view. This same sane, rational point of view always finds a way to, how do I say this? It always finds a way to get completely tossed under the rug. It's never mentioned. And it's normally never mentioned because the television set is really just full of talking heads who love to give opinions and argue with one another. As a matter of fact, it wouldn't surprise me if after the argument, these people don't go to a bar afterwards and decide to get drunk with one another. As a matter of fact, I think it was, and by the way, I'm not really and truly a fan of this guy because of the whole Chris Kyle ordeal and how he kind of sued a dead man's widow, Jesse the Body Ventura. He is the one who said that he found out when he was governor of Minnesota that Republicans and Democrats in the actual legislative chamber, for the most part, it's all a great big giant show. All the arguments, all the debates are in fact a show. This is kind of sort of what they do. Kind of reminds me of 2020, how it was that John McCain's wife decided to come out and endorse Joe Biden based upon the whole we could have dinner together, we could eat together after having a discussion, all that type of good stuff. Meanwhile, the Restrict Act is a bipartisan effort to bipartisanly bend us over without the common courtesy of a reach around or KY jelly. Don't worry, I did a video on that earlier. I'm pretty sure you guys are kind of understanding where I'm going here. These people, for the most part, are just putting on a great big giant show to create emotion. You think about the absurdities, okay? You think about the absurdities of the world that we're living in. The mere fact that up is now down, down is now up, black is now white, white is now black. You think about this sort of thing, and then you kind of sort of come to the conclusion that before we get to South Park, we've definitely turned into Monday Night Raw. More than likely the same version of what existed in the Attitude Era. Of course, I stopped watching wrestling sometime right around 2010. It just hasn't been the same since. But the thing is this right here. It is pretty obvious when you actually look at what's going on that they are in fact using, well,
politics. And I don't recall seeing it as bad as it is today. At least the news media back in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, at least they tried to pretend that they were objective. They tried to pretend at least, and most of them did a great job, they tried to pretend at least that there was an integrity within journalism and lines they wouldn't cross, things they wouldn't do. They would report both sides of the stories and let the audience or the reader decide how they felt about a given issue or personality or politician. But that's gone. And why is that? Why did that happen? It seems to me, at least, that it's really just begun happening over the last 10 years, 8 years, is when it's gotten really bad. Where what you're watching on television isn't so much informing you and making you think, it's making you feel and pissing you off more often than not, because that's what they want to do. It's called cheap heat in the wrestling business. It's easy. Just like me coming out here and making fun of people or inviting this gentleman to come up here and try to drag me off the stage if he was man enough, that type of thing. That's called cheap heat. It's easy to get people to react to that kind of thing. A lot easier to get them to react to that than asking them to think. So that's what they do. When cable television came around, I worked for Ted Turner, by the way, for about 7 years. One of the best times of my life. Ted Turner launched CNN. At that time, first cable news out, 24 hours, international news. That was Ted's vision. Ted believed he could bring the world closer together as a result of that. But here's what happened. Fox TV followed him. MSNBC followed the business model. And what they realize is it's a hell of a lot cheaper to put 3 or 4 talking heads in the studio talking about the news and giving opinions about the news than it is going out and actually reporting it. So now what we see across the boards, and this is a bipartisan problem. This is a media issue. This isn't a one party or the other issue, because they're all guilty of it. So now what you see when you're looking for information are talking heads arguing. No matter what it is, they're going to find a way to argue about it. And if they don't have something to argue about, they're going to reach in a little bag of tricks. They're going to pull out a poll, because there's more polls now than there are anything else. There's a new poll every day. And it will tell you whatever you want it to tell you. It falls into the liars, numbers can lie and liars use numbers. That's a poll. Because those polls provide talking points for the agenda of any particular network. Give somebody something to argue about. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Eric Bischoff would, in fact, know this. He was originally at AWA, American Wrestling Association. He interviewed, and he had to actually do his audition with a mop, believe it or not, for the WWE. Vince didn't hire him. He ended up working for Ted Turner at WCW. This is after, of course, that it went from being called the NWA and transitioned into WCW. When that was over with, he would then become, I think it was like the executive vice president. He basically became the head honcho there when it came to creative and all that good stuff. And then eventually, when WCW was bought out, he was left without a job, and he would eventually go work for the WWE and be a bit of a top heel. That was who Eric Bischoff was. As a matter of fact, I'll be leaving that entire exchange in the description box of this video here. I advise you guys watch the full exchange. Eric makes a lot of really good points, and I don't know where he's at politically or anything, but that really and truly should not matter. You see, right now we're becoming tribal, and I'll be the first one to admit that I sort of got into the whole tribalism thing. It was obviously a mistake on my end. There's a reason why I leave the old cultural war takes up, so that way you guys can see them and kind of grade them and kind of to see that maybe there is a chance that some people's way they actually do things may have sort of evolved a little bit. Obviously, I have figured out that this entire thing is nothing more than a great big giant show and a great big giant sham. And the sole purpose of this is to get one side of the aisle pit against the other. They've been doing this crap for years. I would argue that it got at its absolute worst during the second term of Obama, when he kept on using his race in just about every single, which, by the way, I think the whole race card thing has also got a lot to do with this as well. Like I said before, this entire thing is designed to gin up emotions to pit people against one another, which is really kind of weird, because a lot of my neighbors who I run into every day, I'm not saying that they walk away saying I'm a bad guy or anything, but we always get along, at least in the service. I'm pretty sure. I've never asked them. I don't care to ask them. I'm pretty sure that a lot of these people probably voted this different way than I did. That's because, for the most part, we get along as long as politics is not brought up, even though they may know that I have a YouTube channel. I mean, God knows there's people that live up top who knows I'm speaking in the bottom floor of my apartment. They can probably hear me because I can hear them walking up top. So, I mean, for the most part, we still very, very much get along. This entire thing is designed to get crowds out there. And, of course, you guys are seeing this little thing of Trans Day of Vengeance in L.A., and you obviously know why it is that we're in the state that we are in. It is called the mainstream media. It is the media that is the absolute problem here. Most people can simply agree to disagree and still work together. However, that media of ours loves to continue to gin up all kinds of problems. They love to gin up division. This is who the hell these people are. And of course, you would probably think that maybe it is possible that it is really just the Democrats. Well, in a lot of ways, it is. I would argue that the mainstream media is what, in fact, controls the Democratic Party. And I would also argue that to a certain degree, it controls the Republican Party as well, and I'll explain right now. There's this phrase called controlled opposition. Oftentimes, conservatives will lob it at a certain conservative commentator that we don't think is pure of heart. For example, Ben Shapiro has been he's been accused of being controlled opposition on multiple occasions. Obviously, what happened with Steven Crowder, when we saw what was actually in those contracts, we found out that certain companies will actually do big tech's bidding, kind of for sort of a solidify that. However, don't think for a second that the left does not have controlled opposition either. You see, the idea is to keep one political party from getting a mandate. Well, if you look at the 2024 Senate map, guess what's going to happen? you obviously are going to see a lot of vulnerable Democrats. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you just had this little scandal, SVB, where they just kind of collapsed. We're finding out that a lot of these banks donated heavily to the current administration. So, of course, to keep themselves alive, they're probably going to bail themselves out. If they don't have any money, they can't protect these seats. You see, it's all designed to keep one party from having an actual mandate to fix the country. Because at the end of the day, it's all about destroying the country from within. And that right there, my friends, is exactly what the end game of our mainstream media is. And you guys are seeing now that it is the pro wrestling playbook that is the method that they have used to do this. How to manipulate you, how to get you to feel angry, how to get you to be emotional about certain little tiny deals. Main thing you have to understand, this Nashville shooting is that what we should be doing is we shouldn't be glorifying this trans individual. We shouldn't be glorifying any individual who does a shooting like this. We just shouldn't be. We also shouldn't be sensationalizing it, and we should also be giving families a little bit of time to grieve. And that right there is my 2 cents for the day, guys. Guys, if you like this type of content, make sure you guys hit that like button. Please subscribe. Please share the video stuff in the comment section. I want to get you guys' thoughts. And social justice warriors, piss off.